In a world where wealth buys silence, arrogance often goes unchecked. But history tells us that silence doesn't last forever. In this story, it wasn't a janitor, it was a maid. And the men who mocked her, laughed at her food, called her a village girl, not knowing she was there for her sister's revenge, would soon beg for her meals. The morning sun sliced through the glass towers of Kalu Industries, flooding the 35th floor with a golden glare. Two men stood at the window, their reflections sharp against the city skyline. Adam and Aaron Kalu, identical in every way except for the cold glint in their eyes, surveyed Nairobi as if it belonged to them. On a polished marble table behind them, a silver tray held untouched breakfast, golden mandazi, fresh fruit, and a steaming bowl of spiced porridge. The twins didn't bother to look at it. Adam's lips curled. "Is this what passes for breakfast in this place?" He nudged the tray with a manicured finger, sending a piece of fruit rolling to the floor. Aaron smirked, his voice dripping with disdain. "Maybe the staff think we're running a roadside cafe." Their laughter echoed off the glass, sharp and dismissive. In their world, power meant never having to say thank you, and never accepting less than perfection. Lisa, their executive assistant, entered quietly, her steps measured, her eyes trained on the floor. She'd learned long ago that the less attention she drew, the better. She set 2 cups of imported coffee on the table, prepared exactly as the twins liked, black, with a single teaspoon of raw honey. Adam didn't even glance at her. "Lisa, remind the kitchen that we expect standards. This isn't a boarding school." Aaron added, "If they can't get breakfast right, what hope is there for dinner?" Lisa nodded, her face unreadable. She collected the untouched tray, careful not to let the twins see her clenched jaw. As the elevator doors closed behind her, Adam turned to his brother. "Another day, another disappointment. You'd think with all the money we pay, someone could manage a decent meal." Aaron shrugged, straightening his cufflinks. "People from certain backgrounds never learn. They bring their village habits with them, no matter how much you pay them." Their words hung in the air, heavy with entitlement. For the Kalu twins, every interaction was a reminder of their place at the top, and everyone else's place far below. But here's a question. What happens when the powerful mock the hands that feed them? Have you ever been underestimated because of where you come from? Have you ever watched someone look down on you, certain you could never rise above your station? This is the story of how 2 of Africa's richest men were brought to their knees by the one person they never saw coming. A story about pride, underestimation, and the quiet strength that can change everything. If you've ever seen arrogance get humbled, share your story in the comments below. And stay with me, because what happened in the Kalu mansion will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about power, respect, and revenge. Hello, Grandora family. Marcus here, your storyteller. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. You've just found a channel where every story is packed with real emotions and twists you won't see coming. Before we get started, I want to hear from you. What's the wildest story you've ever come across? Share it in the comments and let me know where you're tuning in from. To everyone who's been part of this journey, thank you for making this community a home for unforgettable stories. If you haven't yet, hit subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss a new tale. A like and a share go a long way in helping us reach more story lovers just like you. Kalu Industries was more than a company. It was a monument to ambition. The twin glass towers rose above Nairobi's skyline, their mirrored surfaces reflecting the city's restless energy. Inside, every detail spoke of wealth. Italian marble floors, rare art on the walls, and a staff trained to move silently, almost invisibly, through the corridors. Adam and Aaron Kalu had inherited their father's business and transformed it into a tech empire. At 34, they were among the youngest CEOs on the continent, their faces familiar from magazine covers and business news. Their success was legendary, but so was their reputation for arrogance. The twins moved through their world with a sense of entitlement that was impossible to ignore. They demanded perfection in everything, especially from those who served them. Staff turnover was high. Few could endure the constant criticism and impossible standards. The twins' words could cut deeper than any blade, and their approval was as rare as rain in the dry season. In the Kalu mansion, located in the exclusive Karen neighbourhood, the atmosphere was no different. The house was a study in opulence. Crystal chandeliers, imported rugs, and a kitchen equipped with the latest appliances. Yet, for all its beauty, the mansion felt cold. A place to display wealth, not to create warmth. At the heart of this household was Mrs. Mutai, the house manager. In her 60s, with silver streaks in her hair and a posture that commanded respect, she had served the Kalu family since before the twins were born. She ran the mansion with quiet authority, her standards as high as those of her employers. Staff respected her, even as they feared the twins. On a Monday morning, Mrs. Mutai stood at the front gate, waiting for the new housekeeper. She had reviewed dozens of applications, but only one had impressed her. Amara and Jerry arrived with a single suitcase. Her expression calm, her eyes steady. "You are Amara?" Mrs. Mutai asked, her gaze sharp. "Yes, ma'am. Good morning." Amara's voice was soft but clear. Mrs. Mutai led her through the grounds, explaining the rules of the house. The twins expect excellence. The last 5 housekeepers didn't last 6 months. You'll be responsible for cleaning, laundry, and some cooking. They often eat out, but when they dine at home, they want everything perfect. Amara nodded, absorbing every word. She moved with a quiet confidence, her steps measured, her posture straight. There was nothing flashy about her. Her beauty was understated, her manner respectful. As they walked, Mrs. Mutai lowered her voice. "One more thing. The twins have certain prejudices. They prefer staff from the coast. Your papers say you're from Mombasa. I suggest you keep to that story." Amara's face remained neutral, but her heart beat faster. "I understand, ma'am." Mrs. Mutai studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Your quarters are in the East Wing. Settle in. The twins will be home late tonight." Alone in her small room, Amara unpacked her few belongings. She moved with care, placing her clothes in the wardrobe, her shoes lined up neatly. At the bottom of her suitcase, hidden beneath a layer of folded fabric, was a small wooden box. She opened it, revealing a worn photograph of a young woman with a gentle smile, her sister, Zuri. Amara traced the edges of the photo with her thumb, her expression softening. "I'm here now, Zuri," she whispered. "They don't suspect a thing." She closed the box and slid it under her pillow, her resolve hardening. This job was more than a chance to earn a living. It was the first step in a plan she had spent years perfecting, a plan that would bring her face to face with the men who had shaped her family's fate. As dusk settled over the mansion, Amara stood at the window, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. In that moment, she was both servant and strategist, her true purpose hidden behind a mask of humility. The world of the Kalu twins was about to change, and they would never see it coming. The Kalu mansion was quiet when Amara finished unpacking. She moved through the halls with practiced efficiency, learning the layout, noting the details that mattered. The way the light fell across the marble in the foyer, the faint scent of imported lilies in the sitting room, the precise arrangement of cutlery in the kitchen drawers. Every detail was a clue. Every routine a piece of the puzzle she was determined to solve. As evening approached, the sound of car engines broke the silence. The twins had returned. Their laughter drifted through the open windows, followed by the sharp click of expensive shoes on tile. Amara straightened her uniform and waited in the kitchen, heart steady, mind alert. Mrs. Mutai entered first, her expression composed. "The twins are home. They'll want to meet you." Amara nodded, smoothing her apron. She followed Mrs. Mutai to the main living room, where Adam and Aaron lounged on a leather sofa, scrolling through their phones. They looked up as the women entered, their gazes cool and appraising. "This is Amara, the new housekeeper," Mrs. Mutai announced. Adam's eyes flicked over Amara, taking in her posture, her uniform, the way she kept her gaze respectfully lowered. "From the coast, right?" he asked, his tone casual but his eyes sharp. "Yes, sir. My father was from Mombasa," Amara replied, her voice steady. Aaron leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You don't sound coastal." "I've lived in different places, sir. My accent changes sometimes." Adam exchanged a glance with his brother, a silent conversation passing between them. "We expect high standards here. The last girl couldn't even make a decent cup of tea." Aaron added, "We're not interested in experiments, no strange recipes, just proper food." Amara nodded. "Understood, sir." Adam waved a hand dismissively. "We'll see. You'll prepare dinner tomorrow. Impress us." The meeting ended as abruptly as it began. The twins returned to their phones, already losing interest. Mrs. Mutai gave Amara a small, encouraging nod before leading her back to the kitchen. That night, Amara lay awake in her small room, replaying the conversation. Their skepticism was obvious, their prejudice barely hidden. She had expected nothing less. In their eyes, she was just another face in a long line of staff, easily replaced, easily forgotten. But Amara was not here to be forgotten. The next day, she rose before dawn, determined to make her first meal a statement. She moved through the kitchen with quiet confidence, selecting ingredients, measuring spices, recalling the lessons her grandmother had taught her. She prepared pilau rice, goat stew, and fried plantains, dishes that spoke of home, but with a subtle twist that elevated them beyond the ordinary. As the aroma filled the kitchen, Mrs. Mutai appeared, her eyes widening in approval. "You cook like someone who cares," she said quietly. Amara smiled. "Food is memory, ma'am. It's respect." When dinner was ready, Amara set the table with precision. She placed the dishes before the twins, stepping back with her hands folded. Adam eyed the food with suspicion. "What's this?" "Pilau rice, goat stew, and plantains, sir." Aaron poked at the rice with his fork. "Let's hope it tastes better than it looks." They took their first bites in silence. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Adam shrugged. "Not terrible." Aaron nodded, chewing thoughtfully. "The rice could be softer. The stew's a bit heavy on the ginger." Adam added, "Presentation needs work. This isn't a village kitchen." Amara accepted their words without flinching. "Thank you for your feedback, sirs." They continued eating, their criticism flowing as easily as their conversation. Yet, by the end of the meal, the plates were empty. As Amara cleared the table, she caught a glimpse of Mrs. Mutai watching from the doorway, a faint smile on her lips. Later, in the quiet of her room, Amara allowed herself a moment of reflection. The twins' words had been sharp, but their actions spoke louder. They had finished every bite. She knew their type, men who measured worth by pedigree, who believed skill could only come from certain places. They would never admit it, but she had passed the first test. Amara reached beneath her pillow and pulled out the wooden box. She opened it, gazing at her sister's photograph. "They think I'm just a housekeeper," she whispered, "but this is only the beginning." She closed the box, her resolve hardening. Every challenge, every insult, was a step closer to her goal. She would endure their mockery, their backhanded compliments, because she knew something they did not. The most dangerous opponent is the one you never see coming. Have you ever had to prove yourself in a hostile environment? Like this video if you relate. As the mansion settled into silence, Amara prepared for the days ahead. The first test was over. The real work was just beginning. Amara settled into the rhythm of the Kalu mansion with the quiet precision of someone who understood the value of patience. She learned the twins' routines quickly. Adam preferred his coffee at exactly 7:15 a.m. Aaron liked his shirts pressed with a crease sharp enough to cut paper, and both expected their world to run without a single hitch. She made herself nearly invisible, moving through the house with a soft step and a watchful eye. In the kitchen, she alternated between meals that were simply adequate and those that hinted at her true skill. Some evenings, the rice was a little too firm, the stew a touch too mild. Other nights, the flavours were so perfectly balanced that even the twins paused, surprised by the depth of taste. Adam would grumble, "At least it's edible tonight," while Aaron might mutter, "Not bad for someone with her background." Yet, as the weeks passed, a subtle shift began. The twins, who once dined out almost every night, started coming home for dinner more often. Their reservations at exclusive restaurants were cancelled, their favourite takeout orders left untouched. Amara noticed the change, but said nothing. She let them believe it was their own idea, that perhaps Nairobi's culinary scene had grown stale. In truth, they were becoming accustomed to her food, even as they continued to find fault with it. Their criticism became a ritual, a way to maintain the illusion of superiority, but their empty plates told a different story. She paid close attention to their conversations, listening as she cleared the table or polished the silver. The twins spoke freely in her presence, convinced she was just another servant. She learned about their business ventures, their rivals, and the pressures they faced from investors and regulators. She heard about AfriCoin, the cryptocurrency platform that had made them even wealthier, and the lengths they went to in order to stay ahead of the competition. Amara filed every detail away, building a mental map of the twins' world. She noticed which names made them tense, which deals kept them up at night, and which secrets they thought were safe. She never asked questions, never lingered too long, but her memory was sharp and her instincts sharper. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the city skyline, Mrs. Mutai entered the kitchen with a note of urgency in her voice. "The twins are hosting a dinner for important guests tomorrow, investors from South Africa. They want you to prepare something special." Amara nodded, her mind already racing through possibilities. This was the moment she had been waiting for, a chance to show what she could do. Not just for the twins, but for an audience that mattered. The next day, she rose before dawn, selecting the freshest ingredients and planning a menu that would impress even the most discerning palate. She worked with quiet focus, her movements efficient and deliberate. The kitchen filled with the scent of simmering spices, roasted meats, and freshly baked bread. As the hour of the dinner approached, the twins entered the kitchen to inspect her progress. Adam's eyes widened at the sight of the elegantly plated dishes, while Aaron tasted a spoonful of soup and raised an eyebrow in surprise. "This is different from your usual fare," Adam remarked, trying to sound unimpressed. "I wanted to make a good impression for your guests, sir," Amara replied, her tone humble. Aaron nodded, unable to hide his approval. "Let's hope they appreciate it." The guests arrived promptly at 7, their laughter and conversation filling the dining room. Amara served each course with care, moving gracefully between the table and the kitchen. The investors complimented the food, praising the flavours and presentation. The twins, for once, had little to criticise. As the evening wore on, the conversation turned to business. The investors asked pointed questions about AfriCoin, about the twins' plans for expansion, about the challenges of operating in a rapidly changing market. Adam and Aaron answered confidently, but Amara could sense their nerves beneath the surface. She watched as the twins leaned on each other, their usual bravado tempered by the pressure to impress. She saw the way they glanced at her, as if seeking reassurance in the steady rhythm of her service. For the first time, they seemed aware of her presence, not as a servant, but as someone whose work mattered. After the guests departed, Mrs. Mutai found Amara in the kitchen, cleaning up the last of the dishes. "They were impressed," she said quietly. "The twins too. They may not say it, but they notice." Amara allowed herself a small smile. "Thank you, ma'am." That night, as she prepared for bed, Amara reflected on the evening. The twins' dependence on her had grown, even if they refused to admit it. Their world, once so rigid and predictable, was shifting. They were beginning to see her, if only a little, but Amara knew better than to let her guard down. The twins' approval was fickle, their trust hard-won and easily lost. She would continue her careful dance, alternating between excellence and mediocrity, never revealing too much, never giving them reason to question her place. She opened her wooden box and looked at her sister's photograph. "Patience," she whispered. "Every step brings me closer." The next morning, the twins requested breakfast at home, a rare occurrence. As Amara prepared their meal, she listened to their conversation about the previous night's success. They spoke of new opportunities, of deals in the making, of the importance of keeping their investors happy. Adam glanced at Amara as she poured his coffee. "You did well last night," he said, his tone almost grudging. Aaron nodded. "The guests were impressed. We might have to keep you around." Amara inclined her head. "Thank you, sirs." Inside, she felt a flicker of satisfaction. The balance of power was shifting, ever so slightly. The twins, who once saw her as invisible, were beginning to rely on her in ways they didn't yet understand. As the days passed, Amara continued to gather information, piecing together the puzzle of the twins' business empire. She learned about their alliances, their enemies, and the risks they took to stay on top. She watched, listened, and waited, her patience as steady as her resolve. The Kalu mansion, once a fortress of arrogance, was changing. The twins' dependence on Amara grew with each meal, each successful dinner, each quiet moment of competence. They still found reasons to criticize, still clung to their old habits, but the foundation beneath them was shifting. Amara knew the real test was yet to come. For now, she would continue her careful work, building trust, gathering secrets, and waiting for the perfect moment to reveal her true purpose. The days in the Kalu mansion began to blur into a pattern of quiet efficiency. Amara's presence had become a fixture, her routines so seamless that the twins rarely noticed her unless a meal was late or a shirt was pressed imperfectly. Yet, beneath her calm exterior, Amara was always watching, always listening, always planning. She had learned the art of invisibility, but now it was time to be seen, just enough to open the next door. One afternoon, as she tidied the study, Amara placed a stack of documents on Adam's desk. Among them, she accidentally left a printout covered in her own handwriting, a complex financial algorithm, annotated with notes and corrections. Next to it, she left a book on economic theory, its margins filled with observations and questions. She made sure the items were visible, but not so obvious as to seem intentional. Later that evening, Adam entered the study, intent on reviewing a contract. His eyes landed on the unfamiliar papers. He picked up the algorithm, frowning as he scanned the notes. The handwriting was neat, the logic sharp. He recognized the flaws she'd pointed out, flaws his own analysts had missed. Aaron joined him, glancing over his shoulder. "What's that?" Adam handed him the paper. "Someone's been playing with our models." Aaron read through the annotations, his brow furrowing. "These are good. Who wrote this?" Adam flipped through the book, noticing the same handwriting. "It's not one of ours. Maybe Lisa?" Aaron shook his head. "Lisa's handwriting is different. This looks like the new housekeepers." Adam's eyes narrowed. "Amara?" They called for her, their voices echoing through the halls. Amara appeared in the doorway, her expression composed. "Did you leave these in the study?" Adam asked, holding up the algorithm. Amara hesitated, letting a flicker of embarrassment cross her face. "Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I was reading during my break and must have left them by mistake." Aaron studied her, curiosity replacing suspicion. "Where did you get this?" "I borrowed the book from the library. The algorithm is something I was working on for practice." Adam's tone sharpened. "Practice? For what?" Amara kept her gaze steady. "I studied economics before I had to leave university. I try to keep learning, even now." Aaron tapped the paper. "These notes. How did you spot these errors on it?" Amara shrugged, feigning modesty. "I've always been good with numbers. I like solving problems." Adam exchanged a look with his brother. "You're a housekeeper. Why are you working here if you can do this?" Amara lowered her eyes. "My father died when I was in my second year. There was no money to finish school. I took whatever work I could find." Aaron's voice softened, just a little. "You could have done more than this." Amara smiled faintly. "We become what circumstances allow us to become, sir." Adam set the papers down, his expression unreadable. "You understand finance?" "I try, sir. I read when I can. Sometimes I use internet cafes to take online courses." Aaron leaned back, studying her. "You know about cryptocurrency?" Amara nodded. "A little. It's changing the way people think about money." Adam's curiosity was piqued. "Show us what you know." For the next hour, the twins questioned her about markets, risk, and technology. Amara answered carefully, revealing enough to impress, but never so much as to seem threatening. She explained her thoughts on Africoin, pointing out potential vulnerabilities and opportunities. The twins listened, their skepticism giving way to interest. When the conversation ended, Adam looked at Aaron. "We could use another perspective, someone who sees things differently." Aaron nodded. "You'll keep doing your regular work, but we want you to look at some of our financial models. We'll pay you extra." Amara bowed her head. "Thank you, sirs. I appreciate the opportunity." Inside, she felt a surge of satisfaction. This was the opening she had been waiting for. The twins, so sure of their own superiority, had invited her into their inner circle, without ever realizing the risk. That night, as she prepared for bed, Amara opened her wooden box and looked at her sister's photograph. "Phase 2 is complete," she whispered. "They're starting to trust me." The next day, the twins handed her a folder filled with spreadsheets and reports. "See what you can make of these," Adam said. "We want your honest opinion." Amara spent her evenings poring over the documents, making notes, highlighting inconsistencies, and suggesting improvements. She was careful to balance her insights, enough to be valuable, never enough to seem indispensable. She wanted the twins to rely on her, but not to fear her. As the weeks passed, her role in the household shifted. The twins began to consult her on business matters, sometimes calling her into the study after dinner to discuss a new project or a troubling trend. They still referred to her as the housekeeper in front of others, but in private, their tone changed. They asked for her advice, listened to her suggestions, and even thanked her on occasion. Yet, for all their newfound respect, the twins never quite let go of their old habits. They still made jokes about her background, still assumed she was grateful for every crumb of attention. They saw her as a curiosity, a talented servant who had stumbled into their world by accident. Amara let them believe it. She played her part to perfection, never revealing the depth of her knowledge or the true extent of her ambition. She continued to cook, to clean, to move through the mansion with quiet grace. But now, she had access to the information she needed, access that would prove invaluable when the time came. One evening, as she served dinner, Adam remarked, "You're wasted as a housekeeper, you know." Aaron added, "Maybe we should put you in charge of our analysts." Amara smiled politely. "I'm happy to help however I can, sirs." Inside, she was already planning her next move. The twins' trust was a fragile thing, built on a foundation of arrogance and underestimation. They believed they were in control, that they could use her talents without ever risking their own position. They had no idea how much she had already learned, how much she had already prepared. After dinner, Amara returned to her room and wrote in her journal, "They've taken the bait. I have what I need. The next phase begins soon." She closed the journal and placed it beside her sister's photograph. Every step had brought her closer to this moment. Every challenge, every insult, every small victory had been part of a larger plan. What would you do if you had a secret that could change everything? Comment below. As the mansion settled into silence, Amara allowed herself a rare moment of satisfaction. The twins, so certain of their own power, had opened the door to their own undoing. All she had to do now was wait for the right moment to step through. Amara's role in the Kalu mansion had changed in ways no one could have predicted. She still prepared meals and kept the house in order, but her evenings were now spent reviewing financial documents, analysing market trends, and offering insights that the twins had come to value. Adam and Aaron, once dismissive, now sought her opinion on matters that would have been unthinkable months before. Their respect was never openly stated, but it showed in small ways. Adam would linger in the kitchen after dinner, asking for her thoughts on a new investment. Aaron would leave reports on her table, marked with sticky notes. "Your input?" They still maintained the facade of superiority, but their reliance on her had become undeniable. Amara moved through this new reality with quiet confidence. She never overstepped, never demanded more than was offered. She let the twins believe they were in control, even as she gathered more information, piecing together the full extent of their business dealings. She saw the patterns in their decisions, the risks they took, the shortcuts they justified in the name of profit. 3 months into her dual role, the twins announced a dinner for several government officials, including the Minister of Finance. The event was to be a showcase, not just of their wealth, but of their influence. Amara was tasked with preparing an elaborate meal, one that would impress even the most discerning guest. She planned the menu with care, drawing on recipes from her childhood and techniques she had learned in kitchens across the country. The day of the dinner, the mansion buzzed with activity. Staff polished silver, arranged flowers, and set the table with the finest china. Amara worked in the kitchen, her focus absolute. As the guests arrived, laughter and conversation filled the dining room. The twins greeted their visitors with practiced charm, guiding them to their seats. Amara served each course with grace, her movements precise and unobtrusive. The Minister of Finance, a man known for his sharp memory, watched Amara closely as she poured his wine. "You look familiar," he said, his tone thoughtful. "Have we met before?" Amara kept her expression neutral. "I don't believe so, sir." The minister studied her face, then snapped his fingers. "You remind me of someone, Zuri and Jerry. She was involved in that national bank case a few years ago. Brilliant mind, if I recall. Such a shame what happened to her." The room fell silent. Adam and Aaron exchanged a glance, their expressions suddenly tense. Amara finished pouring the wine and stepped back. "Zuri was my sister, sir." The minister's eyes widened. "I'm sorry for your loss. She was very talented." "Thank you," Amara replied, her voice steady. The conversation resumed, but the mood had shifted. The twins were no longer at ease. They watched Amara with a new intensity, their earlier confidence replaced by uncertainty. After the guests departed, Adam and Aaron summoned Amara to the study. The room, usually a place of business, now felt charged with something unspoken. Adam spoke first, his voice low. "Your sister was Zurin Jerry." "Yes, sir." Aaron's tone was sharper. "You never mentioned that in your interview." Amara met his gaze. "Would you have hired me if I had?" The question hung in the air. The twins said nothing. Adam leaned forward, his eyes searching. "She was convicted of fraud. The evidence was overwhelming." Amara's composure never wavered. "The evidence was manufactured. The real story was never told." Aaron scoffed. "That's a serious accusation." Amara reached into her pocket and produced a small flash drive. She placed it on the desk between them. "Everything you need to know is on there. Emails, bank transfers, meeting records. Your father orchestrated the entire scheme. He needed Zuri out of the way to secure the National Bank's digital platform for Kalu Industries." Adam's face paled. "You're saying our father set her up?" "I'm saying he destroyed her life to further his own ambitions. And you both benefited from it." Aaron shook his head. "We had nothing to do with that. We were barely involved in the business at the time." Amara's voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. "You inherited the rewards. You continued the same practices. You profited from her downfall." Adam picked up the flash drive, turning it over in his hand. "Why now? Why come here?" Amara's answer was simple. "Justice. My sister died in prison. She was 24. I promised her I would find the truth." Aaron's voice was barely above a whisper. "You planned this from the beginning." Amara nodded. "Every step. I needed access. I needed proof. I needed you to trust me." Adam's hands trembled as he inserted the flash drive into his laptop. Files opened on the screen. Correspondence between their father and the prosecutor, records of payments, confidential memos. The evidence was overwhelming. Aaron stared at the screen, his face ashen. "This can't be real." "It's all there," Amara said. "You can verify every detail." Adam looked up, his voice hollow. "What do you want?" Amara's answer was measured. "A public statement clearing Zuri's name, compensation for my family, and changes to the way you run this company." Aaron's anger flared. "You're blackmailing us." "I'm giving you a chance to do the right thing," Amara replied. "If you refuse, this information goes to the authorities and to the press. The twins sat in stunned silence, the weight of their complicity settling over them. For the first time, they saw Amara not as a servant, but as an adversary, one who had outmaneuvered them at every turn. Adam closed the laptop, his voice barely audible. "We need time to think." Amara nodded. "You have until tomorrow. After that, I take this public." She left the study, her steps steady. In her room, she opened her wooden box and looked at her sister's photograph. "It's almost over, Zuri," she whispered. They know the truth now. The next morning, the twins called a meeting with their legal team. They reviewed the evidence, checked the records, and found no way out. The truth was undeniable. Adam and Aaron spent the day in their office, arguing, blaming, searching for a solution. By evening, they summoned Amara once more. Adam's voice was resigned. "We'll do as you ask. Zuri's name will be cleared. Your family will be compensated, and we'll make the changes you demand." Amara nodded, her expression unreadable. "Thank you." Aaron looked at her, a mixture of anger and respect in his eyes. "You played us." Amara met his gaze. "You never saw me. You never saw any of us." The twins sat in silence as Amara left the room. Their world, once so secure, had been upended by the one person they had always overlooked. In the quiet of her room, Amara allowed herself a moment of relief. The truth had come to light. Justice, long denied, was finally within reach. The air in the Kalu mansion was heavy with tension. Adam and Aaron sat at the long dining table, their faces drawn, the weight of the previous night's revelations pressing down on them. Amara entered the room with quiet composure, her presence now impossible to ignore. Adam gestured to a chair. "Sit, let's talk." Amara took her seat, her posture calm but unyielding. She placed a folder on the table, its contents meticulously organized. "Here are my terms," she began, her voice steady. "First, a public statement clearing Zuri's name. You will acknowledge the truth about what happened and your father's role in it. Second, financial compensation for my family, enough to cover the years lost, the pain endured, and the future Zuri was denied. Third, you will implement reforms at Kalu Industries. No more shortcuts, no more backroom deals. You will run this company with integrity." Aaron's jaw tightened. "You're asking us to destroy everything our family built." Amara shook her head. "I'm asking you to rebuild it. You have a chance to do better, to be better." Adam leaned forward, his voice low. "If we refuse?" Amara met his gaze without flinching. "The evidence goes to the authorities, the press, and every major investor you have. Your reputation will be ruined. The company will collapse under the weight of scandal. You'll lose everything." A long silence followed. The twins exchanged glances, their usual confidence replaced by uncertainty. Adam broke the silence. "You've thought of everything." Amara nodded. "I've had years to prepare." Aaron's anger simmered beneath the surface. "You could have destroyed us already. Why give us a choice?" Amara's eyes softened just a little. "Destruction is easy. Transformation is harder. I want you to understand what you've done and what you can become if you choose differently." Adam's voice was barely above a whisper. "You want us to change. I want you to honor the lives you've affected. Zuri's story isn't just about loss. It's about the possibility of redemption. You can't undo the past, but you can shape the future." Aaron looked away, his hands clenched. "You're asking for more than money. You're asking for our legacy." Amara's reply was gentle but firm. A legacy built on injustice is no legacy at all. The negotiations stretched on, each point debated, each demand weighed. The twins tried to bargain, to minimize their responsibility, but Amara stood her ground. She refused to let them shift blame or hide behind excuses. She reminded them of every life touched by their decisions, every opportunity stolen, every promise broken. At one point, Adam's frustration boiled over. "You think you're better than us?" Amara's answer was quiet. "No, I think I had to become stronger than you ever imagined, just to survive." The conversation paused as Amara's thoughts drifted. In her mind, she saw Zuri, her sister's laughter echoing in the small kitchen of their childhood home, the two of them sharing dreams over bowls of steaming stew. She remembered the day Zuri was taken away, the disbelief in her eyes, the promise Amara made to fight for her. The memory sharpened her resolve. She looked at the twins, her voice unwavering. This isn't just about Zuri. It's about every person you've overlooked, every voice you've silenced. You have the power to make things right. Don't waste it. Adam's resistance began to crumble. He saw the determination in Amara's eyes, the depth of her pain, and the strength of her conviction. He turned to Aaron, searching for support, but found only resignation. Aaron spoke first. "We'll do it. The statement, the compensation, the reforms, all of it." Adam nodded, defeated. "We'll make it right." Amara handed them the prepared documents. "Sign these. The statement will be released tomorrow. The compensation will be transferred to my family's account. The reforms will begin immediately." The twins signed, their hands shaking. The weight of their choices settled over them, heavier than any business deal they had ever made. As the ink dried, Amara stood. "You've made the right decision. Don't let it be the last." Adam looked up, his voice raw. "What happens now?" Amara's answer was simple. "Now you begin again. You build something worth being proud of." She left the room, her steps steady, her heart pounding with a mix of relief and sorrow. In the quiet of her quarters, she opened her wooden box and gazed at Zuri's photograph. The memory of her sister's smile filled the room, warm and bright. A flash of their childhood returned. Zuri teaching Amara how to braid her hair, the two of them whispering secrets under the covers, dreaming of futures filled with hope. Amara closed her eyes, letting the memory wash over her, grounding her in the purpose that had carried her this far. She whispered, "It's done, Zuri. Justice, not revenge. Change, not destruction." The next morning, the Kalu twins released a public statement. They acknowledged the truth about Zuri's conviction, accepted responsibility for their father's actions, and announced sweeping reforms at Kalu Industries. The business world buzzed with shock and speculation, but the twins kept their word. Amara watched the news from her small room, a sense of peace settling over her. She had kept her promise. She had chosen transformation over ruin, hope over bitterness. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe in the possibility of healing. The days that followed the twins' public statement were unlike anything the Kalu mansion had ever seen. News outlets buzzed with the announcement. Adam and Aaron Kalu had not only cleared Zuri and Jerry's name, but also pledged a significant endowment to launch the Zuri and Jerry Foundation for Women in Finance and Technology. The business community was stunned. Some called it a masterstroke of public relations. Others whispered about secrets finally coming to light. But for the first time, the twins' names were spoken with a new kind of respect. Inside the mansion, change was visible in small but meaningful ways. The staff, once wary and silent, moved with a little more confidence. Adam and Aaron, though still reserved, greeted them by name and listened when they spoke. The old air of intimidation had faded, replaced by something closer to humility. The Zuri and Jerry Foundation quickly became more than a gesture. Scholarships were announced for young women across Kenya. Mentorship programs launched, and partnerships formed with universities and tech hubs. Amara watched the transformation unfold, her heart swelling with a bittersweet pride. The legacy that had once been a source of pain was now a beacon of hope for others. Amara knew her time at the mansion was ending. She had fulfilled her promise, and the path ahead called her elsewhere. She packed her few belongings with care, folding her uniforms and placing her sister's photograph in a place of honor at the top of her bag. Before leaving, she sought out Mrs. Mutai. The house manager was in the garden, tending to a row of bright flowers. She looked up as Amara approached, her eyes warm and knowing. "So, you're leaving us," Mrs. Mutai said, her voice gentle. Amara nodded. "My work here is done. It's time for a new beginning." Mrs. Mutai set down her watering can and wiped her hands. I suspected from the start that you were more than you appeared. The twins needed a lesson, and you gave it to them, without bitterness, without cruelty. Amara smiled softly. Thank you for trusting me, even when you didn't know the whole story. Mrs. Mutai placed a hand on Amara's shoulder. You gave this house a second chance. Don't underestimate the power of that. They stood together in silence for a moment, the garden alive with the sound of birds and the scent of fresh earth. Amara felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. As she walked through the mansion one last time, Amara paused in the dining room. The table, once a stage for arrogance and criticism, now felt different. She remembered the countless meals, the quiet victories, the moments when everything seemed impossible. Each step had brought her closer to this day. Adam and Aaron found her at the door, their expressions sincere. Adam spoke first. Thank you, Amara, for everything. We can't change the past, but we'll do better from now on too. Aaron added, if you ever need anything, you know where to find us. Amara nodded, accepting their words. Take care of the foundation. Let it be something Zuri would have been proud of. With that, she stepped out into the sunlight, the weight of her mission finally lifting. She walked away from the mansion, not as a housekeeper, but as a woman who had kept her promise and changed the course of many lives. That evening, in her small apartment, Amara placed Zuri's photograph on her bedside table. She sat quietly, reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. Justice had been served, but her work was not finished. There were others who needed a voice, other stories waiting to be told. She opened her notebook and began to write, her thoughts clear and determined. The fight for justice was not a single battle, but a lifelong commitment. Amara was ready for whatever came next. What lesson did you take from this story? Subscribe for more powerful African sagas. As the city lights flickered outside her window, Amara smiled. The journey continued, and she would face it with the same quiet strength that had carried her this far. 3 years later, Amara Njeri was no longer a housekeeper. She had become a force in her own right, a champion for those who had been silenced and overlooked. She worked with grassroots organisations, providing legal aid, financial support, and a voice for the voiceless. Her name was whispered with respect in communities across Kenya, a symbol of hope and resilience. The Zuri Njeri Foundation flourished, transforming the lives of countless young women. Scholarships opened doors to education, mentorship programs provided guidance, and networking events created opportunities that had once seemed impossible. The twins, though still reserved, remained committed to the Foundation's mission, their actions speaking louder than any words. Amara never forgot Zuri. Her sister's photograph remained on her desk, a constant reminder of the promise she had made. She often visited Zuri's grave, sharing stories of the lives touched by her legacy. The pain of loss never fully faded, but it was tempered by the knowledge that Zuri's spirit lived on in the hearts of others. One evening, as the sun set over Nairobi, Amara received a call. A woman's voice, urgent and hushed, spoke on the other end. There's a family in the north being forced off their land by a powerful corporation. They need help. Amara listened intently, her mind already racing. She knew the challenges ahead would be daunting, the risks significant. But she also knew that silence was not an option. She gathered her notes, packed her bag, and prepared to travel. The journey would be long, the road uncertain, but Amara was ready. She had learned that justice was not a destination, but a continuous path, one that required courage, compassion, and unwavering resolve. As she stepped out into the night, Amara paused, looking up at the stars. She thought of Zuri, of the twins, of all the lives she had touched along the way. She knew that her work was far from over. There were still injustices to fight, voices to amplify, and promises to keep. With a deep breath, she began to walk, her steps steady and purposeful. The night was dark, but her heart was filled with light. She knew that even in the most unexpected places, change was possible. Sometimes, the most powerful change comes from the most unexpected places. Thank you for watching.